Hi, this is Chris Bosch, and you're listening to Animal House Radio with Aaron and Dr. Mike.
I couldn't get him out of my head, and I came home, and ever since my daughter was about 4, she's always wanted a puppy. And you know, little girls, when they're about 2 or 3, they have this little New York accent, and she always wanted a puppy. And when we moved from Regina, Saskatchewan to Toronto, one of the bribe attempts I used is, hey, we'll get a puppy. So ever since we moved here, it was always, can we get a puppy, can we get a puppy? And then I was using the defense, well, honey, when we get a fence, we'll get a puppy. So it got to the point when I asked her what she wanted for her birthday. I think she was about 13, 14 when we moved here. She just looked at me and she said, let's get a fence. I said, a fence? She goes, well, that way I get a dog.
A smart girl.
Exactly. So I came home and I said to Shelley before the kids got home from school, I said, I saw this little black dog, and I said he was, I don't know if he was a Shih Tzu, what he was, a Pekingese. I said he was so matted and dirty, and I said, but he just didn't belong there, and he had such loving little eyes. Yeah. And my wife said, well, you know, we wanted a dog. And I said, I know Alex really wants a dog, my daughter. So we all went as a family down on Friday, and we asked if we could see Ape. And they said, why don't you take him out in the back? There's a little parking, walking area back there. So we took him out as a family, and we spent about an hour with him. And he didn't run away. He sat basically with us and just kept looking up at us like, well, what do we do now? So we did that for an hour, and I said, let's go home and discuss it as a family. We're driving up the Don Valley Parkway. All of a sudden, my son screamed, I said, what should we even name him if we get him? Now, we're not getting him for sure, but what if we name him? So my kids were fans of Will and Grace, so Thomas said, how about just Jack? So that's how. So at Halloween, he's known as Jack-o'-lantern. Now he's known as Jack Frost. Next month, he'll be Jack Rabbit. So
he's one with the seasons.
He goes with the season. But what had happened is what really kind of, there was a little hesitation on our part, because when we were playing with him, we noticed it was almost like he had a broken hip. And I thought, you know, he's been on the run, he's a stray, maybe he is hurt. So we went back on Saturday after talking about it as a family, and I spent some time with the vet, and I said, I'm just concerned about this. So they did some x-rays. It turned out, Aaron, he was so malnourished, every time he sat down, his bottom rib cage, his last rib would stick out of his side.
Jeez.
He was only about 14 pounds, and he was 4 years old.
And at that point, he should have been at least, what, 20
I
pounds?
think he probably should have been 18, 19 pounds.
Yeah, around there, yeah.
Right now, he's about 24, and maybe he could shed 1 or 2.
Go to ismydog.overweight.ca.
Exactly. Anyhow, as you can tell, Saturday we went down, we did the x-rays. The vets down there are wonderful. We spent some time. They gave us the creams. They put us on the road to recovery. They did the spade and neuter program. Everything just went like clockwork, and next thing you know, Jack came home and they told us, you know, give Jack a couple weeks to get used to the Browns, and the Browns to get used to Jack. And I think within 4 days, just because he was so covered in feces and burrs, and his hair was so matted, and it almost looked painful for him to walk because his fur was clumping together, that we did take him over to the puppy spa, had him all cleaned up, and that's when they said, you know, you have a purebred Lhasa Apso. And I said, really? I said, I couldn't tell you what it was.
Yeah. And I bet at that time it didn't matter what it was.
It didn't matter what it was. He made such an impression on us in the 15, 20 minutes we were playing with him. And there are so many wonderful animals, whether you go to the Toronto Humane Society, whether you go to the Durham Humane Society, Chris Williams up at the Ontario SPCA. I mean, they've got, last time I was talking to her, 80 dogs all looking for wonderful homes from these so-called puppy mills. And again, these dogs have done nothing wrong. They don't deserve this. No, but they're all looking for homes, and I truly believe if you give an animal that's in a shelter an opportunity, they are so loyal. We let Jack out in our backyard, and there is no fence across the back because we're in the woods. And Jack stays right on the property. He goes out, sits on the deck. If we let him out the front while we're getting our shoes on to go for a walk, he sits on the front steps, and everybody says, aren't you worried he's going to run away? And we all say, from what? I mean, my wife rocks him to sleep in a rocking chair every night.
He's spoiled.
Oh, he is so spoiled. He gets more attention around here than I do. So you're not going to run away from Utopia. And if you give that sort of love to an animal that's been in the shelter, trust me, they are going to give it back to you 10 times.
Now, was there ever a question in your mind, you know, either going to a pet store, a breeder, or going to a shelter?
Well, again, we weren't aggressively looking for a dog. We knew a dog would be part of our life eventually. It was just, you make that connection. And I know, speaking to the shelters, when you walk into any of the shelters, I mean, people are so tempted when they see the little puppies. But remember, those puppies are going to grow up. And the little puppies that they have in foster homes, I mean, if you walk in and you want a little, everybody wants the little golden noodle and they want the little Bernese Mountain Dog. How can you resist a puppy Bernese Mountain Dog or a little baby golden lab? You can't, and those are impulsive adoptions.
Yeah.
So what we really encourage is, A, think about the fact that they will grow up, and puppies take a lot of work. Whereas you get a mature dog, Jack is 4, we've had him, next September will be 4 years, so he'll be 8. He is so well behaved. We had one accident, and that was in the first 10 minutes we came home, and I thought, is this a sign of things to come? We talked to a few breeders, and they said he was just marking his territory to let you know that he still has a little control. He has never had an accident since. He reads us like a book. He knows Shelley is the soft one in the family. He can just go to her and she picks him up. And I mean, when a dog lays on his back and goes to sleep with his paws up in the air, he just totally surrenders to her. My son is a little more reserved. When we say, Jack, go wake up the kids in the morning, he runs and slowly gets on Thomas's bed. And then we say, get Alex up, and he runs and he'll dive on Alex and almost wrestle with her because she's a little more outgoing. Yeah. He just reads us. But no, as far as going to a breeder versus going to the shelter, again, I just truly believe a puppy probably would have been a little more work than what we needed at that point in our life. And again, I truly believe that these animals, and it's not just dogs, but as I said, cats, there's even lizards. At one time I was down at the Humane Society, there was a turkey, but all these animals that have ended up there truly deserve a second, maybe even a third chance. I mean, you go down, you look at their eyes, and you read their charts, and it might say they're not great with children. Our dogs, our sheet on Jack said, not great with children. And
yeah, but he gets put into a situation.
Exactly, you and I would be the same thing.
Exactly, and you're put in a situation like that. And once again, you put the nail right on the coffin there, where it's you're put in a situation. You're surrounded by all these things. You don't know what's going on. You're in cages, all these other animals.
Oh, it's totally intimidating.
Oh, it's you know what? The worst thing about it, I remember volunteering at the SPCA in Montreal years ago, and we would go in there. We would just go in to walk dogs, and as soon as you walk in, you'd have 80 dogs barking, and you didn't know what to do, and you'd always think to yourself, how does someone come in here and decide which one to take? And that's where I always said, you don't pick the dog. Jack picked you.
Oh, there's no question. Yeah. He looked me in the eyes, and he found a place in my heart. And don't get me wrong, because for my daughter only wanted a Bernese Mountain Dog. That was the only dog we were going to get. And again, when you want to get a purebred Bernese Mountain Dog, they're very expensive, and of course you have a lot of maintenance and everything else that goes on. And don't get me wrong, because Jack does too, but the whole thing is, it was a big commitment, whereas we wanted a smaller dog. I mean, it's so nice. I mean, we knew how big Bernese Mountain Dogs were going to get. I mean, they're the size of a golden retriever or a lab, a full-size lab. They're big dogs. Jack was never in the equation. Even when we were going down to the Humane Society on the Friday night as a family to see Jack, my daughter was still of the mindset, it better be a Bernese Mountain Dog. And we got there, and I saw Jack going through, Alex is down petting him, and Jack's kind of working his way around her legs, and I said, well, and Alex looked and says, we're taking him home. And I said, I think we need to talk about this as a family tonight, but we were back there at 9 o'clock Saturday morning. And Jack was in our house by 2 o'clock that afternoon after we did the paperwork, and went through, his shots were all up to date. And that's the other thing is, not only do the vets go through that whole process with you, and if you go through the shelter, they go through it with you, and they screen the people to make sure that they are finding loving homes.
Yeah.
The spade and neuter program is wonderful. The animal has had its check over. It's not like you're getting an animal, and we hear the horror stories where the falsified papers, they're purebreds, they're from bloodlines. Yeah. These are actually vet checked. Their health is checked. They even give you an insurance policy to make sure if the animal does become sick. And the only situation we had, there was a little bit of infection after he was neutered, and that was taken care of. And I mean, we just have such a wonderful vet, and I can't say enough about Dr. Paul Donovan. He's at the Whites Road Animal Hospital. And for us, we needed peace of mind. So as soon as Jack became part of our family, we took him for his checkup and to make sure everything was fine. And, I mean, he reassured us that, Jack is so healthy and so loving. I can tell by, the way he is around the whole family that he's truly loved. And he'll give that back 10 times.
Oh, it's amazing. Now,
I really encourage everybody to go down there, but what I don't want people to do is go down there and come home with a surprise for the family. Because you don't know if somebody's got an allergy. You don't know if there's a child that maybe isn't ready for a puppy, and especially puppies. Puppy will nip at you a little bit.
Yeah.